Tessa Dunlop is an historian and Nigel Steele is from the Imperial War Museum. Good evening to you both. Nigel, what kind of an idea did people have that the war was about to end?
I think they had a vague feeling that it was coming. It was pretty close by, but nobody knew specifically that it was going to happen that day or it was even just around the corner. So there was still a sense of surprise when it finally came along.
So when it happened, that's why there was such a massive outpouring of emotion on the streets up and down the country.
Yeah, I think people finally were able to let go. They've been holding on and holding on, and they could feel it coming closer and closer, but eventually, suddenly the news seeps out and they realised it had happened and everybody could let go, and that's why it's this moment of great euphoria that everybody remembers.
There it is, Tessa. I mean, the pictures, some of them are pretty incredible. It looks fairly sedate there, but it's hard for us to appreciate 70 years on just how it must have felt.
Yeah, and I think it was quite a nuanced day for some people, actually. I spent the last year speaking to a number of war veterans, all of them female. And for some, you know, there's memories of climbing up bronze lions in their Wren uniform and getting stuck and handsome men having to lift them down. Real kind of the stuff of movies, quite literally, that what you'd expect. But for others, there was a real sense of the uncertainty that they were going to be greeted by. I mean, if you think these young lads and lasses had been off in uniform, given an identity, away from home, and suddenly all that was going to come to an end. And the backdrop was a very scarred Britain. You know, millions of houses had been damaged, 250,000, you know, wiped off the face of the earth.
Because with hindsight, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, well, they must have known in 1945 it was coming to an end. But the last bomb was dropped by the Germans in March 1945.
I think that's why people embraced the end of the war immediately around them in Europe so intensely, because the sense of danger was really tangible still. It was only just over, and I think that's why they came forward and let go with such kind of aplomb.
But I think, again, you know, we really need days like VE Day. Historically we want them. For the identity of our nation, we need them. You look at us 70 years on. But at the same time, we were still at war. I just heard, I must say, on a different news programme, not yours, Matt, them talking about this was the last battle of the war. You know, millions of
It was a world war, surprise,
we were still
surprise.
at war in the Pacific. One of the women I know well now, Pat Davis, she was great. She was working in London at the time, translating German documents. She said, I went out, she said, and I just wanted to breathe in the optimism, but I couldn't feel it because my father was a prisoner in a Japanese war camp.
I'd like to talk about the ramifications we still feel today, Nigel. And of course, everything didn't just suddenly get back to normal on the 8th of May on VE Day. It took a long time. But then there was that sort of, well, the baby boomer generation was born of that sort of sense of optimism that later came after the war. And we still have that now with our ageing population. It's because of VE Day, right?
Well, that's the thing. The VE Day signals the beginning of the return to a normal life, and so people start to come out of the services and they go back to their life, and they've waited for many years. They haven't got married, or they have got married and they've been separated. Then all of a sudden everybody's together again. You start building new lives, and one of the inevitable consequences of that is a new boom of babies, and that's what comes out. And you can see that ripple coming all the way through society.
But it was unprecedented, Matt. You know, never before, certainly between the wars, brides weren't as young and they didn't get married as quickly. There were nearly 500,000 weddings in 1947.
It led to so many things, but just very briefly, Tessa, it still informs our national character now, doesn't it?
We rely on our victory in the Second World War. We return to it, we refer to it. You remember, Britain very shortly after the war was going to stand on the edge of the imperial abyss. Now we're all kind of worrying about the Celtic fringes. Are we going to hold together even as Britain? But this day, this is a British day, a day that we've actively chosen to remember.
I'm glad you limited the politics there. There'll be plenty of that tomorrow. Thank you both very much indeed, and VE Day as well.